What was the biggest up a teacher did to get fired? Female student was texting in class. Teacher confiscated the phone and looked through it, finding nude pics of the girl that she had taken for her boyfriend. The teacher emails the pics to himself. He then tried to sell the pictures to a child PRN site. He used his professional teacher email address when communicating with the people who run the site. That's how he was caught. Police picked him up on campus in the middle of a school day. What the dot? 60-ish-year-old band teacher. At the school for like 30 years. A 17-year oboe player confessed her love to him and they had sex. She told someone and he got fired after the GRPV spread. This is so ed up. Oboe players are never SI. Sold Xanax to students. It had been going on for years at the high school before she was caught. There was a teacher in my system who got fired after some kids found his online dating profile. It was so weird. He didn't talk about the profile at school. And it was clearly something he did in his private life. It wasn't even a particularly racy profile. He just wanted to meet women his age to date. Whatever. Anyway. The kids reported finding it. And the administration fired him. He successfully sued the town for wrongful termination. My old chemistry teacher told me he got fired at one school he worked at because he did a potassium-based thermite reaction on the school's new concrete courtyard. Some wind blew it over and the reaction apparently stained a large patch of concrete purple. Maybe not the biggest up of this thread, but one that was completely avoidable. She had open liquor bottles in her classroom office. A student saw it and told his parents, resulting in a principal search. She was escorted off the property immediately. Oh come on man. Noob mistake. Everyone knows you can get away with it if you just add Baileys to your coffee thermos at home before filling it up. He got badly drunk one night and broke into a house so he could sleep on the couch. With a stroke of complete genius. He chose the house of the chairman of the school board of governors. She drove to work high on pills. Hit a school bus full of elementary school kids. And drove off. He was the best, most enthusiastic and nice teacher I ever had. He taught science and would talk to us about video games and stuff during break. He was doing an experiment involving fire and flammable liquid. And somehow the beaker fell over. Launching, essentially, napalm all over the wall. Some desks. And unfortunately a student's face. 3rd-degree burns and a good amount of mental trauma. I feel really bad for him. He was one of the nicest people I've met. He watched PRN while letting us do whatever we want during art lesson. His wife was also a teacher at our school. Some consider PRN a form of art. My year 12 teacher called a boy in my class lying. To be fair he was. He hit a student with a chair. Had a kid in my Spanish 1 class that was your stereotypical I'm gonna ignore and disrespect the teacher so the ladies will think I'm funny joke. One day in the middle of the year she calls him out for the 100th time for not paying attention and gives him detention. He has an absolute fit. Gets up. Gets 2 inches from this sweet elderly lady's face. Cursing so loudly his face was blood red and had saliva coming out of his mouth. In a quick second I hear the loudest smack. And see this kid stumbling backwards onto a desk. I look to see the teacher's hand slightly raised in the air and her face ghost white. Eyes in horror of what she had just done. The class is dead silent and she just ran out of the classroom. Didn't see her again for the rest of the year. I hope she was able to successfully claim self-defense. My elementary, grade 0-6, gym teacher yelled at kids for using the gym equipment and hit one of the more annoying kids. My 8th grade science teacher got fired because he 1. Told an African American student to go back to prison. And 2. Was handing back tests and was returning an Asian student's test which he got a 92 on and said parents aren't gonna like that one too much. I feel bad for laughing at 2. Girl asked to use the bathroom. Male teacher said no. She said she needed to go as it was that time of the month. He gave her a tissue and told her to prove it. She stormed out. Called her mom, who raised all kind of much understood hell, and he was fired within the day. Yup. He deserved to be fired for sure. That's horrific. Similia was in class with a girl named Emma. 10th grade. She said she needed to use the restroom. Teacher refused. She said she was going through a bad UT and really needed to go. He refused, stating girls don't need to go as often as boys. She threatened to pee on his desk if he didn't let her go. If you left class without a pass, it's a week's suspension. She never missed a day. Teacher still refused. So Emma hopped on the desk, pulled down her pants and peed all over it. Papers. His phone. Cookies, etc. Thermite burned a hole through the desk. And the floor. I worked in an after-school program and a teacher aide was struggling for money and apparently did some PRN on the side. No one knew until one of the parents of the kids saw her in a video and went straight to the office and reported her. She got escorted off campus with handcuffs. It was really sad because she obviously needed the extra money for school and she was really good with the kids. I don't even know if it's legal. One of my religious education teachers got caught with child PRN on his computer. He also had a mannequin wearing a school uniform. If he wanted to get off to little girls in school uniforms, he could have just watched anime. A substitute teacher I had in 5th grade sent a kid to the office because the kid asked him to stop rubbing his shoulders sensually. He never showed up again. His name was, and I you not, Mr. Tickle. Some horrible girl was being a tit in lesson. Teacher told her to knuckle down or she wouldn't amount to anything. Her reply was that her plan was to leave school and basically be a baby making machine and sit on benefits for the rest of her life. Teacher's genius reply: Jesus Christ girl, the only way you'll get pregnant is if you get in the bath after your dad. Girl starts crying, storms out. Teacher never seen again. Molested a bunch of young teenage boys. Teacher was male. He got more than fired. He had kids too. Poor kids didn't deserve to live with that legacy. More than fired. Super fired. So it wasn't really a teacher. It was a substitute, but still. So he had this really strict no phone rule. If he saw phones out, he would take it. This one girl was Snapchatting in the middle of class and he asked her repeatedly to give him her phone. She refused and continued making funny faces on her camera. Then he grabbed her arm and tried to forcefully take it, so she hid it in between her legs. Well, this was a persistent man and he really wanted the phone. Well, you can guess what happened next. Okay, fine. He was wrong. But man, some students are real ass. He was a religion teacher. He kept saying if someone did something bad he would kiss them. Someone did something bad, he kissed them and bam, he was gone. My chemistry teacher in grade 11 blew up 4 windows with a balloon. Sadly, they transferred him. What he was doing was demonstrating reactivity. Fill a balloon with hydrogen and oxygen. Poke it with a burning stick. And it goes boom. Fill it with hydrogen and chlorine. Then either poke it or shine a laser at it. Much more boom. Now, use hydrogen and fluorine. Well, fluorescent lighting will set that off. And it'll blow up. When he released the last balloon. On a cold, dark winter morning. In the middle of the school courtyard. He hadn't first checked if his laser worked. So the balloon kept drifting. Right up to the windows of a 4th floor classroom that had students inside and the lights on. Boom. He barged into the girls' locker room in middle school. And said that he mistook it for the boys' locker room. But that didn't explain why he wanted to stand in our tiny locker room and watch people change anyway. He had done other creepy stuff before, like asking girls to do stretches while he stared at them. Among other things. He also had anger issues. We had a substitute student teacher for a few weeks back in grade school who taught us the wrong way to identify prime numbers. I don't remember exactly how she ended up or what she had us doing wrong. But when our real teacher came back and told us to throw out our study guides, We never saw the new lady again. To be fair, he didn't get fired. He killed himself in the science store. Affair with another teacher got out. He was married with kids. I never knew him or was taught by him, but it was awful. An art teacher was playing a game with students where you spread your hand and take a sharp instrument, an X-Acto knife in this case, and stab the spaces between the fingers. He stabbed a student's hand. Then 2 years ago, same school, a choir teacher referred to a black student as the N-word in front of a group of students before a choir concert at Christmas time. After she was reported, she tried to join the teachers union she had previously decided not to join. Needless to say, she couldn't retroactively join and they didn't want to defend her repulsive actions. I know of more that they should have fired but weren't. Nothing that would physically hurt students, but bad behavior just the same. Not my story but my husband's. A female teacher at his high school had a relationship with one of his classmates. He bragged. Someone told. And she was fired and sent to jail. I'm pretty sure I heard that they still ended up together after all that. The teacher had multiple guns in the trunk of his car. Unlocked car. Within 100 feet of a middle school. I guess it's not particularly unusual for rural schools. But this is in a Los Angeles school. Dude was led off campus in handcuffs. Male teacher gave his phone to a girl in class to show a picture of his cat. It turns out his dick and a cat look nothing alike. Had sex with a girl whose father had just passed away. There had been rumors that he had sex with numerous students, but once he went after this girl, it raised some flags that he was a true predator and not just a horny guy who liked 16-year age of consent and older girls. He was a true predator. Why wasn't a true predator prior to that? He called my class a bunch of arseholes and regularly looked down girls' tops. Jokingly smacked a student. Student was a dramatic bully. Teacher got fired. Teacher's son is still my best friend. Invite kids from his class to his house for sleepovers and let them do drugs. Rumors were that other stuff also went on. A slightly mentally challenged black kid poked the teacher's mug, which had a gold rim and said shiny. The teacher then replied, "S in the hood get shot for that kind of what the?" Leaving child PRN on the school's computers. I don't know why people are so casual with illegal PRN. Like I have an alias as a British man on Gmail just to hide my perfectly legal fetish PRN. My freshman chemistry teacher got caught banging a student and had a bunch of Polaroids of her. If you could picture a small town, totally socially awkward chemistry teacher, he is probably what you'd expect. Slightly long hair. Tan polyester tight polos everyday. Pants just about a ½ inch too short. Thin frame with a little round belly. Thick rimmed brown glasses. And black or brown orthopedic shoes. At the time he was around 45 and I would have thought he was a virgin. This student was a nerdy band girl. Would have never expected it. Looking back, she was actually kind of cute. It seriously sent shockwaves through the school. He ended up serving a little jail time. Then went on the sex offenders registry. 3 years later at graduation, the female student was voted teacher's pet for our senior superlatives. My CCD teacher in 6th grade told the entire class about her theory that the Sandy Hook shootings were fake. A girl lost her father to a long and hard fight with cancer. Teacher pulls her aside a few days later, before class, and says, "It's such a relief that your dad has died. Now you can finally focus more on your studies." Well, she wasn't fired but put on leave. When people were talking, she would scream 1, 2, 3. Stop. Nobody stopped. So she yelled, like a B-I-E-I-E-I screech, and everyone would shut up. Her nickname was Frieza because she had the same voice as the Dragon Ball character Frieza. She went on leave with nervous breakdown. Our old history teacher, probably in his early 70s, was a chaperone on one of those take your class on a tour of Europe trips. He had too much to drink and groped one of the female students. Rightfully so, he got fired. Which is too bad that he behaved like that because he was a hilarious guy and a bit of a legend around the school. The guy they replaced his with was a 350-pound dude who decided to hold sing-alongs rather than teach. His replacement was a college student who brought in his friend in the Ku Klux Klan to do a QA session. It would have been interesting, but KKK man was a complete dumbass who couldn't defend any of his ideology. He kept his job since he could coach basketball. Ah. Yes. The old joke from my history classes at college. Half of all the history teachers in the US have same first name. Coach. A student, male, forgot his textbook, so the teacher, also male, made him take his shirt off because showing up without your book is like showing up to school without your clothes. A. Biggest up I've seen recently was a teacher who yanked a student out of a desk. Wasn't even her classroom, because she had on a hoodie. And we can't wear hoodies in school. Someone was recording and she got fired and we never saw her again. At one school I attended, the band director assaulted a kid because the kid was having trouble learning a particularly hard song. At the school I graduated from, the woodshop teacher just went postal and beat the ever-loving out of a kid in the bathroom. That was about 8 years ago. Woodshop isn't taught there anymore because of that incident. But the woodshop room still has half-finished projects, piles of sawdust, and tools laying around. I doubt it will ever get cleaned up. Wait, so they totally shut down woodshop instead of just getting a not Thai teacher? Why? Special ed teacher was caught with meth in her bag. A kid I graduated high school with was a band teacher. He was Snapchatting a 13-year-old student and kept demanding nudes. It got to the point that Y kept demanding them and threatened her that if she didn't send them, he'd post them on social media. Asshole got caught when the girl went to her parents and told them what was going on. Looking back, it totally makes sense why my male friends would pretty much not let any girl in our friend group be alone with him. He definitely gave off a creep vibe, and obviously it was way worse than I thought it was. I feel so sorry for that young girl who had to go through that. Kept his stash of weed in his desk. Not an optimal place, as he found out. During high school, an elderly teacher put a lollipop in a 17-year-old girl's hoodie and said, "Some things are meant to stay in little girls." The dude got fired 2 months after he started teaching at the school. I heard he was also really sexist and made racist remarks in class. What does that even mean? My English teacher went to Thailand. We were in a private school in Europe and he is American, for a job search. Back then he was renting an apartment from a rich student's family. The police asked the student for the key and raided the teacher's house. They found few 10,000s of child pornography, half of which was all boys. He got fired and the news was that he had to be forced back to US, but all he got was a year of in-house suspension. Grounded. Like when you can't leave about 50 meters your property. My middle school teacher was so nice that everyone made fun of him for it. So much so that he was fired because he couldn't contain his students. Being a teacher sounds like a damn hard job. I've got mad respect for all teachers out there. Not a teacher but a sub. The school was having a practice lockdown and 2 kids wouldn't shut up. He told them that if there was a real shooter he wouldn't mind if the 2 of them were shot. Accused the whole class of plagiarism. We told another teacher. Explained to us in geometry class how to huff whipped cream cans to get high. She was canned the next day. The guy who was supposed to be my math teacher freshman year was replaced just a couple weeks before school began because a student he had the previous school year turned him in before leaving for college. Presumably because he didn't want to continue the relationship. 2 teachers who were dating each other both called in sick in the middle of standardized testing week, which I'm guessing is a bad time to call in sick. They called in sick to fly to Hawaii and get married. It became obvious when they came back wearing wedding rings. They told their students and teacher friends. And their pics were all over MySpace. From what I heard, the board put them on a probationary period, so if they were caught doing anything else they'd be fired. Well, The wife went to the superintendent and cussed him the out and got fired. The husband lasted one more year, went to a different school, and got fired from there and lost his license after a 14-year-old girl's parents reported several shady texts between her and him on her phone indicating they had sex. Didn't lead to a firing, if I remember correctly. But an arts teacher at our school was a heavy smoker. Art room was on 3rd floor of the building, too far for a smoke break. So in the short breaks, or while we were futzing around trying to paint something, she'd sneak out into the corridor and have a smoke. She had an ashtray, which she stored in the art supplies cupboard outside of the arts room. Yup. The supplies cupboard with all the paint thinner, brush cleaning stuff, etc. So, one day, one happy little accident later, we're all standing outside the school while the local fire brigade is trying to put out the blaze caused by her half-extinguished cigarette in her little ashtray. My kindergarten teacher singled me out and held a massive grudge against me. She encouraged the entire class to bully me for being weird. If I did anything too weird, she would punish the entire class for my transgression and make sure that everyone knew it was my fault they were missing out on 10 minutes of recess. She also called me stupid to my parents' faces for having to ask for confirmation on how to spell 3rd to 5th grade vocabulary words. Note that if any other kid came up and asked her how to spell leprechaun, that was just normal to her. A couple years later I find out she had to leave town shortly afterward. He pushed a student through a window. He wrote 14-year-old me a love letter. My 10th grade Spanish teacher cursed out another teacher in the middle of the hallway. She did it in Spanish thinking none of the kids would understand. School cops came, arrested her, and she was fired on the spot. They arrested her for cursing. Wrapped duct tape around a kid's mouth and neck. He had an asthma attack during. Wrapped? Not wrapped. Unless the teacher was rhyming during the process. 11 junior year in high school. My history teacher sleeps with a female student. She's 17 and nothing happens for a time. It isn't until he later finds out that she is a guy going through hormone therapy that he loses his. And everyone finds out. Arrested and charged. She moved out of town. RIP. MR. Parent here. Our kids had a band director who put on a concert one evening that included this piece with African sounding rhythms. She thought that during the music it would be cool to dim the lights and let some of the kids create big flames with lighters and hairspray. Yeah. I don't recall if my one teacher got fired over this, but he should have. Instead of teaching us anything or giving us assignments, he would give us these super easy elementary school level word searches. That was IT. Just stupid word searches. Our classes were 90 minutes and he would leave every day during class for a bathroom break, which always lasted 30 minutes minimum. We would just take naps or goof off while he was away. It was the most stupidest thing ever. She sold cocaine to an undercover cop. A daughter was in the same school and was one of the super popular cheerleader types and an unholy bitch of a woman. It ruined her socially. The schadenfreude was real. What the hell is up with you, Courtney 5? He made a comment about a student who was 18 and in a relationship with a 45-year-old male. What's an 18-year-old doing with a 45-year-old? So much is wrong with this whole situation. I went to Catholic school. My theology professor told the class about purgatory and was subsequently let go because somehow the concept conflicted with the school's heaven and hell values. I thought that the Catholic faith believed in purgatory. I'm asking as a serious question as a Christian. An old sub from Italy went to school in the US, kept yelling at people for no reason, and made a few girls cry. He tried to yell at me and I said something back, so he pushed me. He got fired the next day. That and a teacher got arrested for buying heroin. Had a teacher. Nice guy. Everyone liked him. However, once, he messed up everyone's mark in 3 of his classes by typing in the number of marks earned on a test, etc 4956, instead of the percent. This was the final. And he did it right before the marks submission deadline for teachers. It dropped everyone's mark by a lot. He was not seen again next year. In all fairness, he may not have been fired. Grades can easily be changed. Yeah. Administration might get annoyed by something like that. But it's not something that will absolutely ruin a kid's life. He might have just gotten a job at another school. I had a teacher who was fired for having sex with students. 2 of which were twins. She didn't get prosecuted, however. Because apparently it's okay because she isn't a man who preyed on adolescents. She is a woman and those few boys were curious. Real nice.